I hereby call the meeting to order. Since I see a quorum here. Shelley, are you there? Would you mind calling roll?
Thank you, Chair. Let me call roll, and then I have an email from Commissioner Cerise that I need to attend to. So, but I'll call roll first. Vice Commissioner Andrian.
Here.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Good morning. I have trouble hitting my mic button there, but yeah, good morning. I'm at my residence and by myself. Thank you.
Commissioner Moore.
Good morning. I'm here by myself.
Commissioner Reitz.
Good morning.
Commissioner Spellman.
Here at a house by myself.
Vice Chair Dexter.
Good morning. I am present in my office and I am alone.
And Chair Goossens Larson.
Present here at my home, and I am alone in this room as well. All right. Let the record then reflect 7 members present, 1 absent, so a quorum is established. So we'll move on to confirming today's agenda, which was posted and distributed. Has everyone been able to take a look at the agenda? Any requested additions, deletions, changes? Seeing none, the agenda is confirmed. So then we'll move on to our next item, item number 4, public testimony. So we will now take public testimony. Oral or written testimony on any agenda item can be given. We will again also at each agenda item open up again for public testimony. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. If you need more time, we can talk about that at that time. So inviting any members of the public. I don't see any in the room there unless I'm missing something.
There's no one in the room. Let me check outside.
All right.
Yeah,
and I don't see. Is there anyone else online here?
There's no one else online.
Okay. So then seeing no one, then public testimony, general public testimony is closed. We'll move on to reviewing correspondence. Again, there were a couple letters there that were posted. So again, opening up for any public testimony here. Seeing none, opening up for discussion here. So there were 3 letters, I think, posted, as you see in the meeting materials. Happy to go over those unless there's anyone that has any specific comments about them. There's one related to Maui MPO. So they all come from Mr. Salem. So one is related to MPO and roadway capital improvements. And then 2 are related to what appears to be a planning commission / permitting issue. I don't have any views on this. Like, I do have a view on maybe one on what we could potentially do with these, but opening up for discussion here. Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. I did notice, I can't remember which committee it is. Maybe it's the Grade Committee that are entertaining an additional increase to the legal representation for the county versus Mr. Salem to now cap at $1 million. So I think that's fairly interesting and maybe something that we should keep an eye on because, you know, that kind of plays into the look at settlements. And as this is ongoing, we can't actually look at, I don't think, this one yet, but it does make an interesting case study for sure.
Yeah. I would agree, Commissioner Spellman. I think it's one as we do have that tag on the settlements. It might be something that comes up as examples, right? Since that we've now been exposed to some of this correspondence. It may be a little thread that we can pull. On the other hand, the one on capital improvements, we do have our tag around transportation and capital improvements project execution. So that letter there, I think, is the one that we could evaluate and consider in that tag. And then similarly, the other two could potentially be in the tag related to housing that we're going to get to later. So I do think it's, they're pieces of information that we can consider. It doesn't mean we have to respond on behalf of the county. They're not addressed to us, but it's helpful context maybe for some of the work that we're trying to do, right? So that's the way that I'm looking at these letters. If there's no further discussion, I was wanting to move on to our next agenda item, which is to approve our June 9th, 2026 meeting minutes. Feels like a long time ago now. So again, opening the floor to any public testimony here. I don't think there is anyone on the line for that. So any corrections, additions on the minutes from this commission's perspective? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve, Commissioner Andrea.
Any seconds?
A second.
Commissioner Spellman. So it's been moved by Commissioner Andrian and seconded by Commissioner Spellman to approve the minutes as is. Any discussion? All right. So all those in favor say aye and raise your hand. Those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. So then we'll move to our next agenda item, which is this is our standing agenda item on basically the Cost of Government Commission plan for 2026-2027 term. This is where we basically can talk about anything that we do have. We all have the awareness of the three tags that we currently have. There's one more that we're talking about later. Here again, opening the floor for any. First, I'll ask for any public testimony. I know no one new joined, but again, I'm having to make sure I follow protocol around that. Seeing no public testimony here, yeah, opening up the floor for discussion to any additions or changes to the plan for this year. It's been a while that we've met, so there's quite a few things that have happened, and open invitation here for any thoughts, ideas. Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you. I see agenda number 9 does have cybersecurity. Like, is that going to encompass how the commission uses artificial intelligence tools, or is that something that perhaps we could talk about at this point?
I'm open to talking about it here. Yeah, I think it's a good, and especially as we're talking later about our tag, I think it would be a good topic. I was not thinking we would talk about it in the context of cyber, but maybe there is a cyber aspect to it as well, right? So yeah, we can. What are your thoughts, Commissioner Spellman?
So I'm of the mind that when we use any of the various kind of tools from the frontier companies, Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, Google, etc., that we annotate the work that we do using the tool. So, for example, you can set the parameters for the tool generally and how you use it, and then all the tools now have the ability to do like a co-work or a project, and then you can set the parameters for the specific project. And just starting there, I think that we should, whatever tool you want to use, whatever project, it's fine. I think we should just annotate how the parameters are set and then stay with that. So stay with that project. And if you do make any changes to the parameters, if you want to tune your model at all as you're using it, then annotate that, keep those notes, and then also keep the notes of your prompts as well, so that when we do our final report, similar to traditional citations that we may use when we're referencing previously completed works that were at some time copyrighted, we will also, we should, I recommend designing like a little citation template that we can then use for our various projects, so that we know when and how and to what degree the various models are steering our research, our writing, our conclusions, especially, and then our final output. Because the concern is with using these tools that you'll be averaged by the tool rather than allowing yourself to kind of push forward into new ground on the margins, which the tool is not designed to facilitate. All of its training, everything it does, all of its suggestions are going to keep you in the middle, because of course the goal of each tool is to get you to write another prompt and continue contributing data to their models over time. So I think it's important for us to discuss this and kind of set up a framework now, so when all of these very important projects get towards the finish line, we can transparently describe exactly how these tools helped in that process.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellman. Commissioner Reeds, I see your hand up. Is this in response to Commissioner Spellman, or is this something related to something else?
It's more related to the issue of the police commission and the controversy about governance. I think it would be a great issue. I know we're kind of going to be backlogged this year, but for maybe next year, it might be something that might be worth pursuing.
Thanks for sharing, Commissioner Reeds. So either on the topic of AI or on the topic of, should we call it police accountability, or however you want, governance? Any other thoughts from anyone, any of the other members here? Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Spellman's comments relative to AI. Of course, I'm always impressed by his knowledge. The thing is that I'm not as knowledgeable about how to set parameters up, and we have a lot of different AI sources that are available, and I don't have any idea what these parameters you're describing are and how they apply to all the different models. And so then we get to the point of which model is the standardization, and so if we're going to go this route like you're describing, I think it's important to go ahead and at least have specific AI models that we all use, and then if there's some parameters that will get set, someone has to define that and tell me how that works.
Yeah, I'll maybe share. I prefer Claude. I also use a little bit of Gemini. It's for anything that I do on a personal level, which includes also cost of government commission related work, preparing work papers, things like that. My opinion, though, is that we do need to there's always the human in the loop. That is you take accountability for the work product, and you don't just put a prompt and copy paste what comes out as this is my work product, right? Like that. I mean, I know people do that, but that is not a good practice. So I think I really welcome the discussion, Kevin, Commissioner Spellman, because I think there is a risk there of, just also from a quality perspective. I also share the concern from Commissioner Chamberlain. I'm not sure what we're talking about with parameters. I do understand with models, right? Like Anthropic, you might use Opus, or you might use Sonnet, or and annotating that in the work. I'm not opposed, definitely not, especially if it's publicly facing. So maybe I wanted to ask here for council if there's any guidance, for formal guidance around what work papers need to be annotated with sourcing, and if there's any specific guidelines around the necessity of disclosing the use of AI. I am not sure about that, and that sounds like I'm not opposed to doing it voluntarily, but I'm trying to figure out if there's a requirement at this stage, because that would be something that could be helpful to know about.
Yeah, so we do have a county AI policy. I'd have to go back and take a look at it. I don't believe that it necessarily requires that you list that, but the idea is more AI being used as the sort of the first information gathering tool, and then you use that it generates.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Council. Sorry about that.
How about any better?
Is it me or is it you guys?
I think you got to speak into your mic a little better because it's really distorted.
Right, I can't hear.
Your headset maybe needs to be adjusted.
How about now?
Much better.
Okay. There is a county AI policy. I'd have to go back and check. I don't believe that it necessarily requires disclosure of use of AI, but I think that currently the idea is more that AI isn't used as a production tool. It's used as sort of a first pass tool where it helps you gather sources, and then you do your own research into those sources, at least at this stage. And I think that there are a few county approved AI products, but it might be depending on department. I know we have a few like Westlaw AI. The other thing to keep in mind is what's being done with the data. So if you folks are working on something that is confidential or something that isn't something that should be part of a larger data pool, it's something to keep in mind which AI product you're using, and is it a closed loop system where your information isn't getting added to their data metrics, or is it something that everything is free and you might see your answers popping up on someone else's prompt in a few months. So currently, I think that's sort of where we are. It's still a new concept, and it takes the government a little while to sort of vet these things and understand. So I think right now we're in the vetting process on how we do this while improving efficiency, but also safely, so that we don't inadvertently do things that if we had educated ourselves a little bit better, we would have known not to.
Thank you, Council. Commissioner Cerezo.
I know on the educational side, we can't be using public AI or just open AI sources because it will breach confidentiality for students and, our own things for what we use it for. So we do have to mind how we use this. And if it is confidential, it really needs to stay within a confidential realm. So it's a slippery slope, but that's something you would need to know whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. Let me ask again, Council, is any of the cost of government commission work confidential?
Um, at this time, I can't think of anything that you're doing that's necessarily confidential in that way, but I can't say there couldn't be something that came up. Um, especially if you folks were asked to look into something by maybe council or um, a department and they gave over certain documents. So there could be a situation that
Yeah,
would
but
arise
currently
that,
not.
yeah.
So then, distinction between, because Commissioner Spellman, I do like your, having a practice of disclosing, hey, the AI was used in the redaction of this document or in the completion of this work. And maybe even a reference to a model. I'm not sure about parameters. I don't have that level of sophistication, frankly, but stuff that's something to consider. I do think maybe the distinction is there, especially for public facing documents. So maybe a question there for me is, are there, so, and again, for council, um, when we are, for example, working in a TIG, there are some working documents, right? We have like, we're interviewing folks. We might come up with a list of questions for them. There might be some interview notes. Those notes and the questions are not part of the final report from the TIG. So they're work papers. They're not publicly facing, I think. So I have a question there. Is that true? Is the report, the final report, the only document that is public facing, or should all documents be considered public facing?
Because of UIPA, most documents that are generated by the county are things that could be things that would need to be disclosed. There's only a few exceptions for why things would be withheld, like people's personal privacy. And when they're speaking about people's personal privacy, they tend to be speaking about citizens of the public, not employees or agents of the government. So board members, commission members are considered agents, and so work product under that a lot of times would need to be disclosed. If there's private information that isn't things that are just part of regular, for lack of a better term, employment information like name, etc., then that stuff can be redacted. But for the most part, if it is something that is generated by the county, you should assume that it may be something that would have to be given if asked for.
And we are agents of the county. Is that what I heard?
Mm.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Moore?
Going
And I
back
see
to
the
work,
county auditor as well raising your hand. Sorry, I couldn't. Are you raising your hand? I can't see in the conversation.
Yeah, I think there's one other situation where it might not be public facing. That is, if disclosure of it defeats your ability to do what you're responsible to do, defeats a legitimate government purpose. For example, if you have confidential informants that want it to be anonymous, and you need that to do your work on whatever you're working on, then I believe that that is protected from a UIPA standpoint. However, if there's a lawsuit and the court says
It's
to
discoverable.
disclose, you have no choice. You have to disclose.
Right. So we should consider everything discoverable in a way. And so if we were to work towards like a practice of annotating, it should be, there's no differentiation between final reports and any of the work papers that support the report. Is that what I am concluding, council?
That is another one that can be, it depends. If it's still in the process of coming to a final draft documents can be somewhat withheld while they're still being drafted. So if there's something that would be very different from the final product, then that's another potential reason that something could be withheld. But
Yeah.
The supporting papers would be things that would be distributed usually.
Yep. All right, Commissioner Moore.
Going back to work product, when I think about TIGs, you think about the questions you want to ask a particular, maybe an employee of the county. So based on your comments, those questions would be discoverable. But what about the notes that I take? I mean, to me, those are very confidential because I'm kind of reading between the lines what's being said and what is actually being said. And I really don't want those to be discoverable. I mean, I realize everything's a public record, but it seems like in a TIG, when you're doing confidential interviews, that could be private. Am I wrong on that?
It is.
Mhm.
I try to think of how to answer. It's difficult to determine. It's something that is sort of up to OIP on how to interpret. And so it isn't necessarily straightforward on what they consider things that need to be distributed or things that can be withheld. In the case of taking notes, if the notes are brought back to the group and it's something that's maintained by the county at some point, then it would have to be given out if asked for. But if it's just your personal notes and you don't keep it on something that is maintained by the county, if it's just something in a personal notebook or something, at that point, that wouldn't be subject to UIPA because that's your own personal. It's not something maintained by the county.
Yeah. Commissioner Cerezzo.
So I think maybe the question is, for the purpose of what we do here, what AI source can we use without having to feel like we might be breaching in some kind of confidential way or anything like that? So for instance, for the education system, we have our own AI source that we can use and we can do our work and not have to worry about, oh my God, is this breached anywhere? Is this, breaking confidentiality or trust? So do we have sources, AI sources we can use for the work that we are agents of the community?
I'd have to go back and take a look at the AI policy. I believe that there were some that were being looked into, but I think it's more at this point, sort of more department by department for the things that would be things that you want specific AI for that type of work. Because since work tends to be quite different between departments, you really want sort of a specialized AI. So I think it's normally done internally.
That's correct. So what could we use? I think maybe we should have, you could look into that and then let us know. So we're using the right AI source.
Yeah, I can try to find our AI policy.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's take that action as to share the AI policy with the broader commission, and then we can agendize revisiting that with all that information, because this is really good. I wanna root ourselves in what the policy is, especially if we're agents of the county. Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, I just like to give you an extreme example about private notes. In the Fauci case with his diary, which became exposed to the government now and became a major contention at the legislative layer or level, I should say, there's an extreme case of someone keeping notes and he thought they were private, but then they became public, and now he's under litigation for that. So just something for thought. And relative to the AI tools, the way I use it sometimes is I'll go ahead and use different AI tools for the same subject to see if there's a balancing act there going on, or what I can extract from the different information, determine what the product is from the AI tool based upon the query that I put into the AI tool. So again, there's not a standardized AI tool that I'll use exclusively. FYI.
Thanks, Commissioner Shanlin. Commissioner Moore.
To the Fauci example, I appreciate that. I think the difference is he was using a public government computer. None of our computers are government, as I understand. And if somebody wanted the notes, my notes, they would have to subpoena my computer. And I usually don't put them on computers. I have written scribbled notes, and be using shorthand be difficult to decipher. So I think that's a kind of a different ball of wax in terms of we're not using government computers. We're not government employees. We're appointed, but we don't have any authority. So I would say that somebody would have to actually subpoena probably our notes if we wanted to keep those private. Not that I'm writing anything that, I think is really important that anybody would want, but I mean, there's a fine line between a government computer and our own personal computers.
No. Thank you, Commissioner. So maybe to summarize, I heard a few things. One, confidentiality obviously needs to be considered. Does not appear we currently have confidential documentation, confidential data, but something to be considered if we were to ever have access to it. Secondly, we're agents of the county, but then there's to me distinction between what happens on a county device or on a county tool, county supplied documents versus personal documents. I do hear a distinction there. I do want to have the action taken, and I'll take that with maybe help from Shelley, is obtaining the AI policy. Open to a motion around Commissioner Spellman. I don't know if you have any thoughts around some of the better practices that you were proposing, whether we have a voluntary type of, where we say this is how we use AI and when we use it, how we disclose it. Open to a motion there around drafting something for like guidelines to use. Is that something you're open to? I'm not saying you need to draft them, but entertaining a motion to that effect. Doesn't have to be Commissioner Spellman, could be anyone. Without hearing the Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure we need a motion like at this time, but I am willing to kind of put together like a framework because it does coincide with some other work that I'm doing. So
Perfect.
I wouldn't actually be duplicating my effort. So that's great. And to kind of towards Commissioner Chamberlain's point, yeah, these models, they can be complex. And to Commissioner Cerezo's point, the only way that you can sandbox your data within the model is to use the enterprise versions, and those are super spendy. And a lot of them, it gets really complex in how they allow the communication between the LLM and the user. So I don't think that's anything the county is gonna provide for us anytime soon. So when we use our models, we will be using the public-facing models that are available, and all of our data is going to go up to their larger libraries, and that'll go into to their hopper, if you will. So in that, none of our data is really confidential unless you have like questionnaires where the person fills it out with some identifying numbers and that stuff requires redaction. You can, scrape those types of things off and then keep them only in the directory that you're using for the various co-work of the project components of these various platforms. So you basically have the platform, say Anthropic, and then you have the models. So you have Claude's suite of different models for different purposes. And then within those, you have like the project, and you can set your model for the project, but the project is limited to the particular directory. And that directory contains all of the documents, the files that you want to use for the particular project. So when I say that there's parameters, you have to go into the settings, and then in the settings, that's where you upload your markdown files to set essentially what kind of output you're looking for and where you want to allow the model to branch out to pull other stuff in. So I can put together like a, kind of a basic framework. Here's where you go to find this. This is what you put in. This is how you fine tune it. And I highly recommend fine tuning your instruction sets to these various in these various platforms. Yeah, so I can do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Spellman. The other topic was police accountability. Any other thoughts from anyone on that one? Commissioner Reeds, I know you introduced the topic. I don't know if anyone has any reactions to that. Seeing none, I mean, Commissioner Reeds, I do think, yeah, we have a pretty packed agenda for the year, like you mentioned. Kind of keen to see how this plays out, like some of what we've seen in the news with our crime investigation unit leader being embroiled. Just probably going to let that play out, but I do think it's an interesting topic to follow and potentially, to your point, to consider in the future. I do think there are some other commissions that, like the police commission, I would assume, has accountability for some of these inquiries. So, but I don't think we are limited to even doing over, some kind of asking questions across all of those. But let's have it maybe play out if that's okay, and focus on the current agenda that we have. But I'm going to note it on our backlog. So I'm kind of keeping track of an items list of topics that we've discussed, and all of these are logged in our minutes as well, right? So it's not like this is some kind of secret list. This is the topics we've talked about, right? And so this could form an agenda for, as some of our TIGs are finished, we could definitely take that up. So I'm going to add it to that list in that sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on this topic before we move on to our next agenda item? Commissioner Reeds.
I was just going to say that it kind of adds to the whole issue of the authority of the mayor versus a county or city manager in terms of governance. Again, there's a lot of issues surrounding that. That topic has been brought up for years, but I don't think it got any sufficient votes to change our governance in our county. But it kind of ties to me. So thanks.
Yep. All right. Hearing no further discussion, I'm going to move on to our next agenda item, which is report and discussion of the Great Committee meeting regarding the proposed charter amendments. Quickly opening the floor here to any public testimony. Seeing none. So you see a couple documents posted in our in our supporting docs of the meeting. We did go and take the action last time to go and speak at the Great Committee. I represented the commission. That was the action that we were tasked with taking. What we shared there was also uploaded. There was a handout that kind of summarized that. You see the mayor's response as well to the IMB. There was a healthy discussion there around, it appears that we are actually going to put in, counter to what we shared. We shared in our report, the BC study, we said it needs more investment to be fully effective. I think everyone was aligned that it's not effective as it is. But then the solve that was decided upon was to put it up to voters to go and get rid of the IMB, right? And so that's ultimately what's going to be on the ballot. That was the readout from that. So our topic of the other topic that we were tasked with talking to the Great Committee about was our staggered terms. That charter amendment did not make it to the ballot. So that's kind of the brief readout on that. Anything you would want to add, Shelley, from your end? Anything else in these documents that I didn't mention?
Nope, I think that's about it.
So opening the floor for discussion here, Commissioner Moore.
I want to thank you, Commissioner Larsens, for attending and speaking on behalf of the commission. You did a really great job. And for those of you on our commission, if you haven't listened to it, it is online. You can follow the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Any other thoughts? We'll see kind of how it plays out, what voters say about the IMB, I think. There's a little bit of an aspect of the staggered terms, which we're going to talk about in our next agenda item. So since our charter amendment of fixing our terms didn't make it, it's an open item now. So that's kind of here next on the agenda. If everyone's okay with me moving on to the agenda item number 9. So discussing continuity of the Cost of Government Commission. So that includes administrative support, cybersecurity, and staggered terms. There's a couple topics here. I'll maybe start with the staggered terms aspect since I just talked about it from the Great Committee. We currently do not have staggered terms on this commission. We are, that poses risk from a continuity perspective if we have everyone rolling off at some point and there's no one to kind of, we have the minutes, people can pick up from there. That's worst case. I do think there's something left around. So at the Great Committee, was it Council Member Hodgins that was saying she felt after reviewing that, she actually was one of the one that proposed the charter amendment, wondering if we need to do a follow-up to see if we can do it through code amendment. I don't know if that was what was that was the open question. Basically, do we have to do it through a charter amendment, or can we do it through a code amendment, or is it just administrative stuff, right? And so opening the floor here for any discussion around, are we concerned with our staggered terms and what are potential actions we want to take? Commissioner Moore.
I think we need to be concerned about staggered terms. If you have your institutional memory walking out the door, it can create some real problems. It seems like, though, the Great Committee or the actual full council talked about resolving this through an administrative means. Now, I don't know if that was their final decision, but I know it was considered at one of their meetings. But I don't know if that was, a final result or not. Maybe someone, Shelley or our attorney, would know what their final result was.
I'll maybe council ask if you guys know or not, or Shelley, and then I'll come to you, Commissioner Andrew.
From what my understanding was that there has been no resolution regarding the staggered terms. I did reach out to Office of Council Services following that, and they said from their perspective, because it didn't move forward with the council, that they were done. And then they suggested reaching out to Corporation Council. And I'm currently just waiting for a response as to who in Corporation Council would be the correct person to speak to.
And I am following up on that. I also have not received a response within our office, so I'm trying to track down who that might be. I was stuck in HLU while that stuff was going on.
So the action there, well, let's maybe Commissioner Andrew, what are your thoughts? Sorry, I can't hear you. No, I'm learning how to lip read. No? You'll have to type it in the chat. So, yeah, all right, we'll see. So I'm taking here the action to help, maybe Shelley follow up on and counsel on what the next step is, right, on the staggered terms. Like, we do also still have a vacancy open on our commission that I'd like to take the action to do a follow up on with the IMB, however long they're going to be around, because that's the other part, right? Is if we have a good set of members, enough members, then there is also an aspect of continuity, and we'll be able to put to the test any new appointments, whether there's any leeway for us to start staggering terms with these appointments by making a recommendation. Is another thought around that. So maybe I want to tie the follow up on the vacancy to the follow up on the next step with Corporation Counsel for staggered terms. So I'll take those two actions. Any other conversation on staggered terms, or is that kind of it? Sound good? So then I want to maybe talk briefly on, so the other topics we had were administrative support and cybersecurity. So this is basically debriefing on what happened for our July meeting. So Commissioner Reeds, I see your hand.
I'm sorry, I was just kind of trying to recall now what the current terms are and how staggered are they right now. And then the ninth person could help in that situation.
Exactly.
I think I'm 2020, I don't know what I am, 2029 or 2030. Are all the other people in the same year, or are they staggered right now?
Shelley, you know this off the top of your head, I think.
So
you looked at this a million times.
Yeah, the right now everybody's staggered terms, and everybody's term ends within 1 year of each other. So you have four, it's either 4 or 5, I don't know which comes first, ends in 2028, I believe, and the other half in 2029. And so even with the if there's a new person who's appointed, and I think this would also apply to you, possibly Tom and Dino, if you were appointed and you still had 3 years left of your term, you could apply to be reappointed. So if someone carried over, then there would be less of a staggering. But let's say everybody just wanted to be done at the end of their current terms, then you would have 4 people leaving 1 year and 5 people leaving the next year. So within that year, everybody would be gone.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so let's maybe and I'm reading Commissioner Andrew. I'm going to read it out loud so it's on the record, right? So as we draw near to term expirations, to bring members in from our residency seats to the meetings, get them in the IMB process, if that still exists, we'll be proactive monitoring, getting them acclimated. Yeah, these meetings are public, so this is maybe a good way to bring some people on board and get them up and running. Shelley.
Thank you. Just to give you one more piece of information, the INB has not interviewed. I'm not sure if they've interviewed anybody for the Cost of Government Commission, possibly since they started, but they have not interviewed anyone as of late. When I spoke with Jody, so for the 9th member that we still don't have, it's out of, at this point, the INB is not interviewing. They have no one to interview. The appointment process has just been going back and forth. No, let me look it up real quick. It's been going back and forth between the mayor and the county council. So I believe that on August 10th, the mayor's time to nominate the 9th person ended, and it bounced back to the county council, and they have until September 8th. And it just keeps going back and forth every 30 days. But there's been no effort towards nominating anyone for that position.
Yeah, thank you. Any thoughts around nudging folks around that from this group?
But is it a certain residency seat that's vacant right now?
There's no residency requirement. They try to balance it out, but there's no requirement.
I didn't realize that. Okay, very good.
I'm going to go back to corporate. Then the remaining action is corporation counsel on the next step to help us resolve the staggered terms. Any thoughts around recruiting for these next members, Commissioner Cerezo?
Sorry, I was thinking about what Shelley said, where the mayor and the council are, passing the
Council
ball.
member.
How does that work exactly? I mean, is it just sitting on the desk and they don't get to it? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it they need longer than 30 days? Because then it's just 30, 30, 30, 30. Next thing you know, it's a year. Is there a reason or rhyme or reason why it's like that? That's all.
Commissioner Andrew?
So the decision now is with county council, is that right? With the great committee? Is that what's happening? That's where this process is. And then at September 8th, it's going to go bounce back to the mayor. But the IMB is no longer a part of the selection. Is that where we're at with this? So can we find out what committee meeting like we can show up at, or, the chair can show up at and even give a suggestion of who to fill the spot with? Like, is that what
I love that.
is that where we're at with this? Because like, let's find someone, I can name 10 people right now who would be a great fit for a cost of government seat. So, and I'm sure we can all do the same.
Commissioner Chamberlain?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's multiple people involved in this ping pong match, okay? Or is it just one person? All right. And again, going back to the fact that is there a possibility that we can advocate for somebody, I support that.
Commissioner Cerezo?
And if we can advocate, then who do we see? Who has the ball at that point?
So Shelley, would you mind clarifying? Do you think there's an upcoming meeting at which maybe one of us could? I'm happy to take that on and testify and agitate a little bit if we need to. But is there a meeting like that is going to be public where we could do that?
No, what my understanding and Jody could clarify, from the INB, but that if someone applied online and it went through the INB, they would go through their process. But and they could make a recommendation then, for example, we approve of this one person, these 3 people. They could give a list. They don't have a list right now. And the way it works is once it's taken out of the INB, I guess in an ideal world, mayor's, court, the mayor could put out a press release saying, we need to fill these positions, and then they would apply directly. And right now it's in the county council's court. So my understanding is anybody on the council could nominate someone, right? They don't have to go through the INB. Someone submits their name to them and they would move forward with whatever their process is. So it's not going to be taken up by it. I don't think the great committee.
It's not taken up because there's no list, is what I'm hearing. There's nothing to be taken up because
Right.
So it is starting with needing to feed the funnel of candidates to even
Right.
make it to a point of putting something in front of council or mayor.
Correct, but they don't have to
Okay.
go through the INB. The council member, if someone appeared tomorrow and they wanted to
So
put their
we
name
could
in, they
we could
could do that.
potentially say we want this person on our commission.
Yeah.
And send that to the mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the
Commissioner
person would still have to go through the whatever
Right,
the
right.
application process is.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Commissioner Indian.
Sounds like if it's sitting with the council right now, like it's something we could even write a letter to. If it's the council, then the chair and vice chair, or if it's within the great committee, then whoever oversees that committee, right? And making a recommendation of who to consider for the vacant seat. And we don't even have to do that as a body. It seems like anyone in the public could potentially do that, write their council member and suggest someone, because it's no one's gone through the IMB process and no one on the mayor's team has appointed, and it's just bouncing back and forth. So they might welcome that. I would think they would welcome that. So, you know, whether we do that together as a team or individuals, or, you know, share that with people we know in our community that would want to recommend someone to their council member, that might be a way we do this to fill our 9th seat here.
Yep. Commissioner Chamberlain.
So we still don't know how many potential people are in this ping pong match. Okay. Is it one or is it two?
Well,
Shall we know?
there's no list. There's no one to be considered, right? Which is why there's no action for any one of them to take, which is why it's ping ponging back, because there's no one on a list to be nominated, right? And so they need a candidate to be put in front of them for that, right? And that's, I think, here the missing link right now is, and that was one of the things that we do know from our BC study, is that recruiting is a challenge for the IMB because they're so busy with just getting people through their administrative process and working through a backlog and all of that. Recruiting is a known issue. And so I do think maybe the action is on each of us. If you have any folks that you want to have nominate that you think would be good, have them apply or you know, put them up in front of your, and I would assume if we would send it to the mayor will go, here, IMB, please interview this person, right? They're probably going to say that until the IMB is abolished. And, you know, that's probably the process, but it does start with us just saying, here's some candidates, so we can do that recruiting. County Auditor, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that, you know, it's common sense, and I'm sure you guys would do it. But if you are going to submit a name or names, whether individually or as a cost of government committee, I would provide at least at a minimum the application forms that is in the INB to give them a background on who you're talking about rather than just give a name. Because if you want your best opportunity to get this person on a resolution for an appointment, you know, they're going to need some information. This minimum amount would be whatever the INB requests for background information on the county. That's all.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I think that kind of that gives whatever clarity. I think it's all on us to propose some folks. I'm not right now wanting us to do this as a group, like, because I don't really, unless we feel strongly. So I don't know if there's any motions to entertain here, other than please go out and see if there's any folks that you can recruit, have them fill out the forms, the application forms. We would like another member, right? Because that will just help in general with quorum and all of that, and also continuity. It reduces the risk. So maybe then I'm still on continuity of this topic, administrative support. So debriefing on the July 9th. So we had maybe, would it be okay, Shelley, if I put you on the spot of like super high level? So not like in every aspect of the details of it, kind of what happened. And then it would be good to root this group in what happened, to have a discussion around how do we make sure we have some kind of ability to avoid it going forward. Does that make sense? Like, we had a missed meeting. I hate that. There's some work that we're keen to do, which is on the agenda here later as well. We weren't able to get to that, right? So there's an impact. So maybe, Shelley, could you briefly outline what happened?
Oh, yeah, I can speak a little bit to it, and then I might let the county auditor take over. Just from, you know, my perspective, you know, I had the meeting set up and was curious as to why no one was entering the meeting, and then realized that there might have been an issue with the link to the meeting itself. And I actually really can't speak to what exactly happened, but my understanding was there might have been some malware involved in that, and I'm not sure if it's the link or otherwise. It hasn't been determined. And so when that was the case, unfortunately, when I was in the meeting, I was fine, but unfortunately after the meeting, I'm not sure, when in my attempt to figure out what went wrong, I clicked on something which then triggered what appears to be malware on my computer. So at that point, I contacted the county auditor's office and subsequently turned over my computer. So, and I'm going to let the county auditor speak, as to what happened after that. At the current time, I have a replacement computer and kind of operating from scratch.
But
And
maybe before we go to county auditor, Shelley, how long did it take between you basically this having the malware and then having a new functioning device? And I'm hearing you might not even have access to historical files even, but what was the time frame between?
I think it was, the meeting was on Thursday. I think I got my computer on Tuesday, so it wasn't a long time.
No, but I think it was an issue because we were trying to get potentially this meeting on the calendar for the week after, and we had no administrative support. It was too late, right? We couldn't. We needed them to post it on Friday, and we couldn't because there was no backup device, right? So
and then just trying to determine what the issues were. I mean, there were a whole host of issues as well, including malware that one of the other auditor staff also had the same issue, and they're a staff of 4. So that when you had 1 down and me, that's 2 out of 5. So that was their focus at the time.
County auditor, anything on your end to add on this?
So I think part of the problem was on the agenda, which was posted on the county's ITSD website. If you clicked on the link, it sent you to a different place, not to the meeting. And that's the reason why Shelley couldn't see it. So we were not, I think from my understanding from the ITSD and from the council's consultant that handles the council system, it's unclear as to whether or not they sent you to an old cost of government website or sent you to a malware site. One of the people in my office tried to get into the meeting, clicked on it, and all the virus protection lit up. At that point, she stopped, we called. So what you have to understand is that the agenda is posted on the county's website, the administration's website. That's a .gov. Our computers we have a server which is standalone. Our emails handled through the legislative branches side. So we're working with 2 basically. We're working with ITSD and the Maui County Council's computer people. Two separate things. The ITSD, which is the county website, has more, I guess, more confidential information. It has the accounting system. It also attaches to the DMV websites. So the emphasis for us was to try and get the agenda down because we don't want any more people to click on that website, the link from the channel. So we worked with ITSD to get that done. And on our side, we called the council's IT people. They're basically 2, and they're supported by a third-party consultant. Unfortunately, they were extremely busy because they were working on the elections computers, getting it up to snuff. But they did come down when we called. We had 1 backup computer. We utilized that computer in terms of my auditor, which was in the office. We later got another one to be backed up to allow Shelley to get on the site. But you have to understand that, our office, we don't have any IT people. The main person in our office is the administrative officer, and she does a good job considering, that's not a primary function. But she's the person that corresponds to both the county's IT department and council's IT department. It's problematic, you know, and yes, it's important to have cost of government up and running as soon as possible, but you know, it's not a situation where I can step up an IT department and have, you know, I've done the best I can with what I thought, which what I think is enough support for the cost of government commission. So waiting that amount of time, you know, is my call. I don't want to hire an IT person in my office, nor do I want to set up my own website. I don't think it justifies it. But that's not to say that learning from this incident, you know, I'm going to look at other things that I might be able to do to better support the commission. But understand that everything comes with choices. Yeah? And that's the way I look at it. If the commission wants more support, then my suggestion would be to possibly engage either the council's IT department or the, I guess, administration's IT department or party, but outsourcing to a third party is going to be quite costly, I think. And there'll be issues regarding confidentiality of information. So, long story short, you know, we can look at supporting things better, maybe get another computer to back up, but understand that for the past 12 years, this has never happened. So this is the first time in 12 years, not to say that it's not going to happen in the future, considering the new environment there.
Well, so maybe a few observations. Thanks for outlining that. It's super helpful. And hopefully that kind of helps everyone understand what occurred and kind of some of the facts after that. There's two things. I'll share. I log in from a corporate device from my employer. That corporate device rejected the link. It knew the link was bad and did not get infected. So my corporation's cybersecurity stance is stronger than the county's. That's concerning to me, right? So that's item one. Two, my hometown in Europe, in Belgium, Antwerp, they had a ransomware attack. They were out of commission for 3 months. There was no permitting, no city business. It was hugely disruptive. This is something that occurs like more and more regularly. Knowing now that the county's stance is weaker than the company that I work for, I'm concerned, right? So I'm concerned about cyber, and this is just like a minor event. But I think it just begs the question more broadly on what's the county's, especially then and we already know there's that council IT and then county IT, and then the county IT being different, and then having different levels of access to resources. It creates, if there's one that has less resources, they're the ones creating the vulnerabilities for everybody else, right? It's bad to have two places that are really interlinked, and then one not being resourced properly because you're exposing yourself, right? So to me, it begs a lot of questions around our cybersecurity, and I'd like to see if that's something that we can ask general questions to. Who do we direct those questions to? County auditor, if you have anything on your audit plan around cyber, like a CI Site 18 audit, like a basic audit on cyber. Those are some of the questions that come to mind for me. But opening up to the floor for discussion by the commission as well, if there's anything else that you think we should do, any questions we might want to direct at some folks.
Oh.
Would there be support, Commissioner Reeds?
Well, I'm just kind of curious in terms of the cost issues involved. You know, you talked about the administration and all of the different options available, but what if we had a small contract with Zoom or somebody like that to just on a backup basis provide support? I don't think that would be that costly, but it would be a backup, you know, like we have on our energy backups and things like that. Is that, I'm not sure if that's the best option, but at least to have some emergency backup option that wouldn't cost that much, but would be available in an emergency situation.
Yeah, it was not the meeting product that I think Teams was working, right? It wasn't that Teams, it was literally the link, the tiny URL link that wasn't working. And then the device, the county devices not picking up on the fact that the link was bad, right? And so I don't think it's a meetings product, but it's a good, it's fair thinking, Commissioner Reese. It's kind of like, what's our backup protocols in general? And because also, Shelley, if I don't know if you played a lottery or not, but if you win the lottery tomorrow and you're like, all right, I'm done, I'm walking away, then what do we do, right? Like, so how do we ensure because that's also part of continuity. So I do think there's something to be done around potentially one, asking for some level of, documentation, so we end having continuity if Shelley's device is compromised, and then two, can we kick the tires a little bit around on cyber and the stance from IT. County Auditor.
I don't want to give the commission the impression that we have no backup to Shelley. The backup to Shelley is the administrative officer. She's the one that actually started to look into this. In regards to your concern about the overall county risk, I can agree that that is a risk. I have considered in the past as to going to outsource some kind of a risk assessment on the IT, but I have not. I've looked at other areas which I felt that my office could handle better and was more important at that point in time. Currently, we're looking at fraud risk assessment, doing measures to address fraud. Possibly, I could think about adding something like a risk assessment for both the, I guess, the system and the council system.
Yep.
But it will take time for me to look that up and scope it out.
Yep.
Doing a third party, I can put it on the plan, but that's the easy part.
Yeah.
Hard
that'd
part
be great.
would be for me to scope it out to see
Yep.
exactly what they're going to do, and that might take some time because we'd have to research it to the extent we can.
Yep.
Now, if the Cost of Government Commission wants to take a look at it to see, where we're at, it's a possibility too. But that's where I stand at this point.
Yep. Thank you. Commissioner Cerezzo.
So we're looking at, how to solve this. Could we go manual and just, post, instead of computer, like can we meet in person and just do this meeting and post the minutes? We still can post it because you can do it from a different computer. But I mean, that's an option too, right? Even though we rely on Zoom and it's a lot more easier for us to get together this way, but we always have the old-fashioned way, right?
Yeah, it's not that the meeting wasn't working, right? Just to be clear, the meeting is on Teams. The kind that doesn't use Zoom. Teams was working. It's just the link to the document, and then the process of updating the agenda on the website, because we need to have the public have the same access as us, right? They need to have the ability to join there as well, right? And so the process of updating that, I cannot update it online, right? Like right now, it's my understanding only Shelley can make that update online and go and even if you want to post online and say there's no Teams meeting, we're going to only meet in person, you still have to post that online. And so someone needs to post it online as like, hey, we're going to be meeting in person.
Isn't that a website? Isn't that a web?
Yeah.
Isn't there access to the website? So that should be able to be accessed to from any computer. It's Shelley's code to get into the website.
Yeah, not everybody can do that. And that's kind of the point, right? Is that's where the continuity aspect is at risk. Commissioner Spellman.
Sorry, got it.
Too many minutes.
So yeah, it's like the agenda goes to a Weedy, and then the agenda comes back, and then the agenda gets posted. So at what point was the link corrupted? Was the link corrupted when the agenda came back from a Weedy? Did someone break into a Weedy and then just add some malicious content to that particular link there? Or did they break into Shelley's computer and add the malicious content there? And is Shelley's computer a county computer? Like, are her files backed up to a partition in memory somewhere on a legislative branch server, so that even if Shelley loses her machine, she can just pick up another machine and log in, and all of that content is going to be there? Like, I think that's really kind of the root of it, is where does Shelley save all of her content? Where is Shelley's work? You know, is it on a council? Is it on a legislative branch server, or is it just local on her machine? And so if that machine gets toast, you know, or bricked, like, do we lose all of this content and all this work that Shelley's executed for us? And I think doing a cybersecurity audit should be like annual. I don't
Right.
I don't understand why that's not a thing. And, you know, back to my work at the BCC project, you know, creating a centralized hub using that Singaporean model where IT is in the center and the different branches all use the same IT kind of component of government. You know, that's the fix. And you can see that it's been successful in lots of different iterations. So can we get there? I don't know. Like, and then when you're looking at Maui's automated planning and permitting system and how antiquated that system is, and it has brought us back to like e-government. This is like the dawn of 2002 with that system. Like, there's so much IT stuff to dig into with the county that we're just so behind. And then you add the artificial intelligence onto it as well. Like, currently Copilot, you can't use Copilot with the internet, and thank you. You know, please don't allow Copilot to go to the internet. But that means it's all of the department's content that you have to try and use to make Copilot work, because Copilot's not going to work without any content. So like, where are all the rules on that? And just file names generally, like, it's just, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
You're muted, Chair.
Sorry, I'm transferred to my phone and I didn't realize I was on mute. Commissioner Chamberlain, you have your hand up.
Yeah, again, I want to emphasize that we have two different systems in the county, okay, and they're not necessarily united in any way. They're two different support systems, and I think there's good purpose in going ahead and potentially trying to get a third-party evaluation with a contract to do an overview and create a report similar to what the county auditor did for his annual report. So I think there's a valid point for that.
Yeah, so Commissioner Cerezo, did you have anything else? Did you see your hand up?
Yes. thank you, Commissioner Spellman, for, I think, articulating what I was trying to emphasize, is that I don't get how archaic this is. Maybe it is my ignorance on how archaic the county's IT is. It sounds like that's what I'm hearing for this duration of our meeting, practically. And maybe we have to do a TIG on that, because that is costing us. That's costing us time, money, and it is a hindrance. And maybe that's something that should be brought up, that we have to be brought into this century. I mean, we're talking AI, and we can't even get somebody to log on from a different computer, because the website that we would use, which is the host of, where we keep our archives, that didn't sound like that could even happen. And I was like, wow. I mean, that is archaic. Anyways, that's all.
Thanks for sharing, Commissioner Cerezo. All right, so I think that was kind of the I wanted to facilitate. I did take away a recommendation. Commissioner, County Auditor, I think you're hearing from this group, right? The desire to have this, especially the tires kicked around cyber and some of the intricacies that come from having these disparate IT groups. I know you also have limited resources, but would love to partner up with you. And to your point, if I'm going to add it to the list, my list that I'm keeping of things that we could consider for future TIGs. If there's a motion there to entertain on whether to consider that in the next meeting, open to doing that. But yeah, do I see your hand up in the room?
Yes. I think a lot of things that's been said, we're assuming. I would think it would be beneficial if he had a representative from ITSD and a representative from the council's computer support people, so you better understand how this works. And if you do like a TIG or something, that it'll be beneficial to scope down what you're talking about. I mean, if we just say IT, doing autumn IT, there's that can range, and the scope can be so broad that I don't know if it's cost efficient. And perhaps even, I'm not even sure if the ITSD department for the county has annual risk assessments. So all of those things, it can be answered if you take it up in a TIG and ask for representatives from these different departments. I'm unqualified to answer this because I just don't know.
Yeah. It's a really good idea, actually. So I'm suggesting taking the action with help from you, Shelley, to maybe have the head of IT come talk to us at the commission at their convenience. I'm sure they have many different things going on, but I mean, our next meeting isn't until the next month. If they could make it there, then we can maybe have a little bit of Q&A with this group. Is there opposition to taking that as an action?
It's a great idea.
Do I need to put that up for a vote? I don't think I do. Council.
Yeah, I was just going to give one piece of my experience with IT, looking into sort of products. What tends to be an issue that comes up a lot is that when you contract for these things, the product itself usually is relatively simple. The issue comes up in the integration of the county files with the new system. There tends to be a lot of issues that come up with how to transfer, because in order to transfer these really old files, sometimes it requires a lot of coding and facilitation just to get it from one product to the new product. And so that might be something to look into as well, because in my experience, that tends to be one of the things that drives contract prices way up is incompatibility between the old filing system and the new filing system and needing to find fixes for that. You're muted again, Chair.
Sorry, I keep doing it because I'm in a car. Sorry. But thanks for sharing that, Council. So with the action to invite the IT team to come and have a discussion with this group where we can talk about cyber and do a debrief there. Shelley.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. You just mentioned the ITSD representative. Are you just talking about, because you have the IT representative on the administrative side and the IT people on the council side? Are you only talking about one right now, the administrative side?
Both.
Both, okay.
I would love actually to see them in the room together and see how that works exactly. Does that clarify?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Then I'm going to move to, unless there's any further discussion, I wanted to move on to our next topic, which is review to establish potential and possible establishment of temporary investigative groups. So I'm going to open again the floor here to public testimony. Being none. So the item that we have on the agenda is, so third time's maybe a charm. Here, Commissioner Reeds, is housing policies and the construction permitting process. Commissioner Reeds, may I ask you to do your presentation one more time? So for the broader commission for us to consider.
Thank you so much. One of the reasons why I got on the Cost of Government Commission was to look at some areas of heavy community interest. And I found that in terms of talking to individuals throughout my area, that the permitting process is a key integral part of establishing more housing, particularly affordable and workforce housing. I've been an advocate for about 15 years in terms of affordable housing and workforce housing, and really see that there continues to be an issue in terms of the timeframes. I did a general research on AI, looking at various permitting processes throughout the world, and found that Singapore has a process of within 2 weeks they provide permits. Well, of course, that's quality versus quantity and how they go about doing the permit process and how good it is. I'm sure that the expertise in the planning department and public works and water even they have a high level of understanding and are very intricately involved in the review process. The issue is trying to balance that expertise with the need to get things done more quickly. I also noted that Yuki Sugamura, as part of her campaign, has highlighted affordable housing and permit process as one of her key issues. So I'm heartened by that fact. But again, I've talked to developers, talked to contractors, talked to individuals who are building homes. Everybody cites this as one of the top 3 issues in Maui. And so with that, I felt that would be a good use of our time as a commission to take a real good look at the process. I'm not sure that it would include all the sidebar issues like the fee structure and things like that, but more to focus on what is the critical path that provides the shortest amount of time in an integrated process for people to come up with a permit review process that is much more timely than what we currently have. I didn't look at the actual numbers. I think that'll be part of the study in terms of factual. I did hear that's up to 400 days, and that we are basically in competitors with Honolulu in terms of the amount of time that it takes to issue permits. So with that, I recommend that we do initiate this TIG. Commissioner Houston Larson has indicated a willingness to be on that TIG. So we would, if it is approved, we would need one more individual to participate in that TIG. With that, I'll open up for questions.
I don't think we need another member, but I'm definitely open to us having other members. But I don't think we need more than 2 actually. Because we already have a TIG with 2 members, for example. So, but definitely open. So opening the floor for discussion. The actual scoping document is also posted, so you can review it there. So any comments, questions, discussion here? Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you, Chair. Last time we had this discussion, Commissioner Reeds, you had narrowed the scope down to a single family dwelling, which isn't the same conversation as affordable housing, because those are generally multi-family dwellings. So those are 2 vastly different categories. So did you want to focus on multi-family dwelling permitting, or did you want to just focus on the single family dwelling?
That's an excellent point. Basically, I was looking at a 2-part process. One is residential versus business. And I would agree that in addition to just that multifamily housing would also be part of that review. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, and also, were you going to look at the ocean side of the near state highway, or the mountainside, or both?
I think it's more global. It'd be both, and you know, one has more complexities than the other. But as the process went through, the goal was to reduce the amount of time, whether it's multi-housing, whether it's an individual residential housing, to reduce the amount of time it takes to get approval. Okay, that's the big issue.
And so, just kind of to be clear, there's a lot of different approvals. So are you just talking about
exactly,
like, you want to see all of the different approvals that are necessary for a given location to build either any type of housing, whether it be single family, duplex, or multifamily? And you want to also add in the commercial aspect to it?
That would be the second phase of the TIG, if approved, and it might be a separate TIG later on down the line. But I've heard complaints on both sides, and so it's still a valid issue on both sides, whether it's residential, multi, or individual, or whether it's more the business commercial side. So yeah, and I, you know, for one, having had a past experience in doing work standards and system studies with Booz Allen and Hamilton when I was working for the state of California, I know it's very complex, Commissioner Spellman, and that's why I'm daunted by the task, put it this way, because, you know, I'll try to designate 10 to 20 hours per week of time to do that, but I know how complex it is and how I can get into sidebar issues that can, you know, make it more convoluted. But the bottom line is the critical path. What's the shortest amount of time to get a permit approved? And if you have for example, an approval that says if you have built in less than 5 years, and you get an automatic approval for your plans if you don't make any plan changes, and when that takes a year to do, then I know that something's wrong with the system. They just need to take a look at it and try to be objective, and knowing that 80% of the recommendations that the commission might give are probably going to come from the staff themselves. That was my history when I was doing reviews and standards, and that where I got a little bit concerned about the whole issue of confidentiality, because, you know, I got a lot of recommendations from staff who said, don't tell my boss what I'm telling you. And so that was of concern to me in terms of how I approach this study.
And I guess lastly, are you going to look at like the reconstruction zone or not the reconstruction zone?
Explain that a little bit more to me when you talk about reconstruction zone. I'm sorry.
So like, are you going to be looking at how fast you can get a permit to rebuild a like-for-like structure that's mountainside of the Honapiliani Highway in Lahaina? Or are you going to be looking at, you know, how can I build a multifamily affordable housing complex in the mountainside of the Kihei Highway? You know,
I really think as I do the research and get into all the nuances and have discussions with staff and individuals who are advocates, that it may or may not include all of that. But at this point, I'm not trying to rule out any part of the residential permit process. Okay. And if there are variances where one permit process is 1 year and one is 8 months, 6 months, whatever, and they might be a different carve out, that's fine. I was just looking at an example in California in the Danville area where they approved in Ohana that was about 4 or 5 different options. And if you agree to all those options within 3 months, you can build your property. And those are the type of things I want to look at in terms of what we have here and what's available, how to reduce the amount of time that it takes to get a permit issued. That's the primary goal. And if I look at the numbers and 80% of the benefit is in 20% of the area, then I might redirect some of that. But it's at this point, it's all inclusive, possibly narrowing it down as the time permits or as the problems arise.
Council, I see your hand up.
Yeah, based on what you're saying, you might want to structure it not as permit, but as approvals necessary for residential, because permit is specific to what things that are permits, but there's other things like subdivision approvals, things that aren't necessarily permits, that also have an effect on what you're talking about. So if you're trying to look into this broadly, I'd say you might want to just go with approvals necessary to construct residential affordable.
So yeah, I'm hearing that the temporary investigative group on housing policies and the approvals process as opposed to construction permitting. Is that what you're suggesting then, Councilor?
Yeah, permitting restricts you to one aspect of the process.
Permits. Yeah.
Especially if you're saying construction permitting, because you also have environmental.
Yeah, that's a helpful addition. Thanks for that. I think Commissioner Reeds, are you amenable to potentially changing it that way?
Yeah, I just want to get something done. You know, that's my whole goal. And if we can get one day off the permit process and provide approvals, I would be ecstatic. I know that all the people who I've talked to, and I'm including developers and everybody else, they really want to get houses built more quickly. That's the whole process. And there's a sidebar issue for me because I'm chair of the Architectural Design Committee, and there's no requirement that an individual go through the MAPS program. And having gone through our program, our requirements first, and I'm in the process of trying to have a person have to back out of their process because they're not meeting our standards. So there's a lot, I mean, I know there's a lot of issues involved, and I just want to try to help people to design a home, get an architect, get approvals, and get through the process in a reasonable amount of time. And if that reasonable amount of time is 5 months versus 8 months or 9 months, so be it. I'd be happy to have that happen.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Just to make a suggestion, maybe we should narrow it down even more, trying to get it down to individual permits relative to residential. Just start that first process, and then the second would be expanded perhaps to multifamily and developer type things or whatever, or whole community development associated with building individual homes.
Yeah, the more we have the discussion, the more I think that might be an excellent way to kind of carve it out. So it might end up being a 3-part process, you know, the individual housing first, then multi-housing, and then the business into a 3-part structure. And I don't know if that would be separate TIGs or not, but I like that idea. I think it'll be probably something more that can be digested. Again, given the amount of time that I can spend, and I know Commissioner Larson has a lot on his plate too, so that might be a better way to carve it out. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Because then, is there a motion to establish a TIG on the housing policies and the approvals process? Focused on, do we want to add single family homes, or just, you know, I'm just going to say it without it. So is there a motion to establish a TIG on housing policies and the approvals process with the subject scope, membership, and reporting timeline as stated in the document that was posted?
I would move that.
Any second?
I would second.
Commissioner Moore, second. So discussion on the motion to establish a TIG on housing policies and approvals process. And any further discussion? Commissioner Chamberlain?
I haven't read the scope, but maybe it's important to go ahead and define the scope specific to the stages of which we're trying to accomplish here. If that's because this could be a very expanded, long-term type of investigative study. And so I think it's important to go ahead and specify in the scope, the goals and objectives that are trying to be accomplished within a reasonable period of time. It's not going to be a 2-week thing, I guarantee you that.
Oh, no.
The document does state it, but it is not specifying it to some of the discussion we had earlier around whether to tackle single family first. We can add that in the scope. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Commissioner Chamberlain, or am I hearing something else? And Commissioner Reeves, you appear to open to that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Commissioner
let's
Moore,
just get down
I
to
see.
specifics on what we're trying to accomplish here in the
Yeah.
document. Okay, so that keeps an outline, a project step procedure to accomplish specific objectives.
Oh. Commissioner Moore, I see your hand up.
Right. So I'm currently involved with a TIG with Commissioner Larson, so I don't really have the bandwidth to join, but would like to see other members of this commission possibly join in to help, because when you start doing the research and the time involved, I mean, it's going to be pretty involved. So if other people have the time and the interest, it'd be nice to see some of you involved as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Definitely. What do they call it? Helping many hands make light work, or whatever that is. English is not my first language, so Commissioner Cerezo.
Yeah, I probably can't do heavy lifting on this, but I could do some lifting on this. So
Wonderful.
if you guys want to include me in on, and I can let you know what I can do and how I could
Perfect.
help.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Spellman.
Thank you. So I will have to recuse myself from this particular vote because I'm a planner. But I would definitely recommend when you start the TIG to really focus on the land use variables as your foundation before you start branching out and seeing all the different permits and approvals that are necessary, because there's a vast difference between trying to build a dwelling unit in something that's designated urban as a state land use district versus agricultural. And so, just as a background for the state land use districts, and I'll just leave it here, is there were only 3 land use districts when they first set them up. And it was urban, conservation, and agricultural. And so anything that didn't fit into urban or conservation was thrown into agricultural. And then a couple years later, they decided to make the 4th category, which is rural. And so they moved a portion of the parcels into that to try to bridge that gap between the urban and the ag. But I would really focus just learning that, and then learning your zones, and then learning the special management area, historic districts, if you choose and really it all starts with the position, the geographic location that you want to build on. And then you discover your land use variables, and then you work out from there. You see what Hawaii revised statutes you have to look at, what national rules, especially for wastewater and water. Then you're looking at Title 16 for building codes that covers like driveways, electrical, plumbing, construction, framing, all of that stuff. And then you have like the planning department, and say you need a change in zoning, well, that's a whole different thing. Or maybe even you need a conditional permit or a county special use permit. If you're looking at the use for the geographic location that you're deciding to build on. And that's like super important. And these can broaden out. Just look at a county special use permit, like it has to go to a planning commission. That means you have to get on the agenda. There has to be reports. Those, that planning commission has to meet, and then maybe it has to go to the council, and then they all have to get on board. Because basically there's only 2 ways that you can initiate a build. You can initiate it through a developer, or you can initiate it through the council. And so just there is a vast difference in what needs to occur legally for that initiative to be completed. So I would just, caution you, if you're going to go down, there's a lot of rabbit holes for you to go down. So just try to keep your strokes broad, and maybe even give yourself a time limit for your first phase, just a research phase. And then we'll come out of this TIG, and then maybe we can bring on some other people for the next phase of it, or, interchange it out. But to keep the same 2 or 3 people for this whole long experience that you're about to embark on might be a little exhausting. So that's, I just want to leave that.
No, I appreciate that. And one of the first things I wanted to do was interview you before I get too far into the process. And I also had mentioned to Commissioner Guzens-Larson that I would like to have a kickoff meeting with the mayor's office, the council, and the major departments involved, just to announce what we're doing, who we are, and to solicit a point person at each location to, especially in MOPS, to help me and other members of the TIG to digest that. And I was talking to Shelley before, and she'd indicated that normally hasn't happened before, but I thought it would be a good thing to do. I have done that in the past in my previous studies, and I found it quite useful to get management a little more understanding and in support of the process. Thank you.
I need to quickly intervene here because we are gonna lose quorum, especially if Commissioner Spellman is recusing himself from voting even on this. So I would like Commissioner Chamberlain, unless it's super pertinent, I would like to move to starting with a roll call vote on this motion. Commissioner Chamberlain, quick thoughts.
Well, roll call vote would be great. Again, I think we really need to narrow down exactly what we're trying to accomplish relative to this TIG. And then again, you still need to go ahead and apply the concept of workforce housing and affordable housing, those are, bring those into context, okay, and this is important as well. So rather than just building for highly, wealthy people, relatively meeting the needs that are necessary here. So that's another thing hasn't been really addressed yet.
Well, I'm going to put the motion up for vote as it is, which is the motion was establish temporary investigative group on housing policies in the approvals process. I heard limited to single family homes with the scope, subject, membership, including now also Commissioner Cervizo as stated. Shelley, could you help with the roll call vote?
Did we get a second?
Shelley, I can't hear you.
The scope references permitting processes a lot, so maybe some authority to just modify that scope.
Yep.
Okay. Roll call. Thank you. Commissioner Andrian, I think, is excused. Commissioner Cervizo.
I'm here.
Andrian is here.
Oh, you are.
Yep.
Okay.
Aye.
Commissioner Cervizo.
Aye.
Commissioner Chamberlain.
Nay.
Commissioner Moore is excused. Commissioner Reitz.
Aye.
Commissioner Spellman is recused himself. Commissioner Vice Chair Dexter.
Aye.
Chair Goossens Larson.
Aye. Sorry, I wasn't keeping count. I should have kept count, but I think we have five ayes,
We have
2
five.
recused.
Yeah. Five ayes, 1 excused, 1 recused, and 1 nay.
Okay, so with that, the motion passes to establish the TIG. We only
Thank
have
you.
7 minutes. Yeah, thank you. We also have on the agenda other potential topics. We kind of already covered a few earlier in the discussion around cyber, as well as police accountability, as well as IT. So we do have some actions there. I don't know if at this point there's further discussion to be had around any other topics. If not, it's Commissioner Chamberlain.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the documents that were supplied by Mr. Salem relative to the capital improvement project, as well as the house down there on the lower road. I think that I'm not quite sure why he hasn't testified exactly and what his whole purpose was of submitting those documents to us. But from my perspective, normally it's a desperation that he hasn't, got any resolution from the county relative to his concerns. But the documents are well constructed and very informative. Yep. And I think that there should be some kind of purpose and response relative to his submitting those documents to us.
Thanks for sharing that, Commissioner Chamberlain. Are you thinking? I'm open to any suggestions here from the group. I'm reluctant to engage with a person that is in litigation with the county. Is what I'll share as my opinion on that, but open to any other viewpoints. Okay. Not hearing any. Was there a motion there, Commissioner Chamberlain?
No motion. I just was trying. I didn't realize again about the litigation aspect of it necessarily, but again, I just was thinking that at least we should go ahead and maybe respond that way.
I mean, we're on the record. Yeah, we're on the record already that we've considered the correspondence, that we have access to it. We have TIGs that are operating in some of these areas, so that correspondence is helpful context. So to Mr. Salem, he can look at the record here and know that that's our response, right? We're not going to further engage. given active litigation with the council, with the county. I think it just, we don't want to put anyone, including Mr. Salem, at risk in that sense, right? So including ourselves. All right. So with that, I'm going to move to, we have one more item, which is discussion of the County of Maui procurement procedures and guidelines. As you'll maybe recall, last time we had a bit of a discussion around how do we make decisions around that. We obtained the internal policy documents that was the County of Maui procurement process document that was shared. I have not delved into that significantly, other than maybe what I'll share is that there's always a policy document or a procedures document, and then there's the actual practice, right? Because there was some concern around single source purchasing and things like that. So you'll see references to that in that document. The reality is usually these policy documents and procedures documents are very well written and it all sounds great, right? It's like, all right. But the point is what happens in practice, right? And so you wouldn't be able to verify that until you've actually done an investigation of that or an audit of that. County Auditor, you shared a few documents in response as well around that there are some audits in these areas already being conducted. So would you mind expanding a little bit on maybe what you shared with me and for this group to see if there's anything then left for us?
The state auditor has been mandated by the state legislature to look at sole source procurement, single source procurement. So he's doing an audit. The audit encompasses all the counties, but the focus of it was during the emergency proclamation, COVID. I'm not sure if it contains the wildfire as well.
Yeah.
So the state auditor is already looking into it. I think there are other. There may be other investigations from the Attorney General Office looking into some of those procurements as well. I think it's well known in the papers about the bribery charges on Salem relating to the Kidney Foundation. So it's an area, if you go into, you may find some obstacles where people are not going to talk to you, but I'm not sure, so it's up to you.
Yep. Thanks for sharing that. Any thoughts from the commission on this? Commissioner Spellman?
Thank you, Chair. I have already started building an analytical framework for the procurement kind of evaluation because it dovetails with the capital improvement program. So kind of both of those frameworks, when you look even at like degrees at universities, capital improvement and procurement are part of the same, degree. So
sure.
That I found interesting. I got some stuff from the United Nations on, because Maui is really a developing nation. So I found that pretty helpful in using the document that we have here that was on our agenda list. So I can build the framework and then look at that document and see, best practices. Is there something that's missing? Are they approaching something in a way that's different than kind of best practices in other places of the world? So that kind of level is where I'm at with the procurement. But I like it not being a TIG. I like just keeping it something that we can just keep checking in on as a group.
Perfect. So I'll take the action to add it to the agenda for next time. See if there's any further discussion then at that time. All right, I know we're at the top of our 11, we're close to 11. I know there's some folks that need to go. At this point, there's a review of our action items, right? So I took an action to obtain the AI policy from the county, have that shared with this broader commission so we can all review that. The action, Commissioner Spellman, of drafting something around use of AI, responsible use of AI. We then had the action related to inviting in the IT folks to come and speak to us at our next commission meeting. And then to agendize procurements more in general. So we'll keep that as an agenda item for next time. Did I miss anything, Shelley?
I will go through everything again and just double check, but not at the moment.
Okay. And what's our next meeting date?
Next meeting date is September 10th.
Perfect. All right. Any objections to that at this point? Like we'll, I like just keeping on the schedule as opposed to trying to move meetings around last minute. I know it's difficult for folks. So yeah, with that, I was going to move on to adjourning the meeting unless there was anything else. All right, not seeing any objections. I will adjourn this meeting at 11:02 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Two.